better never rests.
Counting careless in the sky. What a thrilling time to be alive.
Good morning, everybody. It's the Georgia Show. It's Tuesday, February 6th. I'm Jake Rowe. He's Rusty Mansell. We're from DawgsHQ, and got a couple major things to talk about today. Both of the five-star variety. We're going to get a last little update. We got signing day tomorrow. Not what it used to be, Rusty. We'll get into that too. Not what it used to be. Not eating breakfast at the Blind Pig anymore, that's for sure. And then we're going to look ahead at that Georgia-Alabama game in Tuscaloosa late September this year. And just kind of, we've been taking a look at Georgia's Power 5 games, just looking way ahead, maybe picking out an element or two that were standing out to us right now. And we're going to get into that. But Rusty, hey, let's audible here real quick. Let's talk about this February signing day. All right, man. I remember Shannon Terry. One of the reasons Shannon is who he is. I mean, on the first early signing period, on the first day of the first early signing period, he tweeted out, and it may have been a little bit day or two later, but it feels like it was the first day. The early signing period is the new national signing day. And boy, if it hadn't played out like that, because looking forward to that first weekend in February, just not what it used to be.
No, I mean, this is no comparison. It is definitely December. January used to be the most important visits. Now June is the most important visits, and December early signing day has replaced this day. And whether you like it or not, this is. I mean, whatever happens tomorrow for Georgia, they're still going to be number one. They're still going to have the number one class, and they're in on a five-star young man out of Texas, and it's crazy where what we've been through, in times and places and decisions and those types of things. But all the stories we both have, but it is definitely different. And this point in day now, it is about the early signing period and that transfer portal window.
Yeah, I'm not going to complain about it because we've hit on this before. Man, that burning up the road in January back in the day, just trying your best to get that last update to talk to that kid after that last official visit. Golly, it was, and it seemed like it just flew right by. It seemed like, like 3 weeks was really, 10 days or a week. It blew right by. And I stayed in a lot of hotels, visited a lot of high schools, hung around and twiddled my thumbs for 2 or 3 hours waiting for a guy to get out of this workout or get out of this thing just so I could get a couple quotes. And it was nuts, man. It was absolutely nuts. And all of those official visits, so many of those official visits were crammed into that 3-week period.
Think about all the people that you talk to at schools. I'll never forget the connection for Malcolm Mitchell was the secretary at the school. She's the one that knew. She's the one that was close to him. And she was the one that kind of knew when people, most of the people didn't know. There was just different people around the school. You would go by these places so many times, you're like, hey, who knows around here, and a lot of times you find out who the favorite teacher was, because we weren't recruiting the kid for the school. We were recruiting the kid for the information. We needed to know what was going on around you.
That's right.
And so I would spend hours and days and then, like you said, I've been in hotels and roads and all kind of stuff. And then signing day, you would just signing day was so crazy that you would just have to, I would have to just set up. I used to go set up at like a Starbucks and I would go to the car, do radio, and I would put in my headphones and just stay on my phone all day long, texting, trying to get the last minute updates, updating boards and all that kind of stuff, because you couldn't really be. I think the last signing day decision that I think I went to for that regular, I think it might have been Davin Bellamy. I think that might have been one of the last ones that I went to.
That was over 10 years ago.
Yeah. Lorenzo Carter, if he was after, I think I went to Lorenzo Carter on signing day at Norcross. I think that was the last one. One of those two might have been the last one. You think about that, though. I know Lorenzo was class of 2014, so yeah.
Yeah, it was after. Yeah, that would have been That literally would have been 10 years ago, almost to the day now.
No,
And dude, I remember, and listen, I remember I was working at Rivals at the time, and
Mhm.
our site crashed on the day of Lorenzo Carter.
I remember that.
The
I
site
remember
crashed, and I remember trying to run around and figure out what was going on there. Felt good about Georgia's chances. That was such an odd class, man. One of the weirdest classes I think I've ever covered, because it was a really good class for Georgia when you think about it. Nick Chubb, Sony Michel, Malcolm Parrish was a good player. I know it didn't end great for him. So many really good football players in that class. Dominic Sanders ended up being a great player, late addition from that class. But yeah, and then my thing is I've covered it from two different angles. I've covered it, and we still do it now. It's more of a team effort than it used to be, where you cover it from kind of the team side, which is you get posted up somewhere and you get ready to write. You get ready to write letters of intent coming in.
Yeah.
Last year, we did a letter of intent for every single player that came in, and we kind of split them up and got it working that way. But man, and then this past year, dude, I mean, what about this early signing period, and Georgia signed 28 players in about 6 hours? That was
think about that. Y'all got killed that day. I was on the road a little bit that day, and our little text thread was like every 2 minutes, and then they just kept releasing and kept releasing and kept releasing. So it's definitely different, man. It is totally different world. That's the day of the age of this thing, and it's definitely sped up. I to sign the times. The All-American Bowl, which was formerly the All-American game, announced yesterday they're going to allow juniors to start playing. So, and I talked to them 2 years ago about that. I said, guys, I'm not saying I made that decision, but I did. I was out there and I said, guys, you need to start letting juniors play. I mean, this is the way it's going. And, they went through the process and officially announced yesterday that there's going to be juniors playing in that game, juniors and seniors. So I think that's a great thing.
No doubt about it. And so now we look ahead. It's been kind of full speed ahead on the 2025 class already. You mentioned Terry Bussey. What's going on here? Let's just kind of give folks a little bit of a behind the curtain right before a decision comes down, I guess, tomorrow.
Well, this is a young man that we've talked about several times, even on here. And the one thing I'll say is, am I predicting he'll go to Georgia? No, I'm not right now. And I don't think I've been to that point yet. But what I'm confident in saying, that there were some people that kind of said, hey, this is either LSU or Texas A&M. And those two teams may be in the lead, and they may be the final two. But I'm pretty confident Georgia was still in this thing. As far as 11 p.m. last night, I don't have an update yet this morning, and I will before today on DawgsHQ. But, there's still communication between Georgia and him, and a good bit of communication. So in my experience, that says that they're in this thing. Now, how much, I don't know that, and it would be a massive kind of pull, and for Georgia to pull a 5-star, has been committed to Texas A&M for a long time. He took a visit. Georgia went out there. Glenn Schumann, Dante Williams, all these guys, and T-Rob go out there to see him again. And, that's kind of where it is today. I'm confident that Georgia was a big in this thing more than people thought. Am I willing to say Georgia's going to get him right now? I couldn't do that, but I'm gonna get an update today, see where we're at. And I was kind of surprised at the update I got on Sunday night, because usually when teams are kind of out of it, and I was reading things that people said Georgia's kind of out of it, you don't hear that type of communication still between. I'm talking about multiple phone calls between him and Georgia staff. So we'll see where this thing goes.
Yeah, and listen, I mean, if you want to talk about coaching staffs that are really never out of it until they shut them out of it, until they're just completely done not talking to him anymore, is Georgia. I mean, like Hugh Freeze knows all too well. Like you said, some of these people like to recruit late into the night, and Georgia's one of the. I believe he was referring to Georgia as far as that one goes.
I tell you, I don't think. Because this kind of came out of not nowhere, but kind of it did left field a little bit at the Under Armour game. He announced he was going to take an official to Georgia. But this young man, he's got a story. And he's had a couple of tragedies in his lifetime. He is a high academic young man. Does not do much media. He is a 3-sport superstar. I'm talking superstar at his high school, and does it all. Great basketball player and all these things. So this young man's got a great story. If someone gets to write this thing on him, but it doesn't do a ton of media. And that tells you, I talked to some of our guys yesterday at On 3, and they're like, hey, we're just trying to find out, there's not even a scheduled announcement. Like, you don't even know I don't even know if he's going to do one. I don't know if he's just going to pop up with a tweet or something. He may pull a Hayes Fawcett special and just say, here I am. I'm committed to this school. And so that's a, kind of an interesting thing. We were talking yesterday. I was talking with the home office up in Nashville, and I said, guys, when is he announcing? They're like, we don't know yet. Like, this kid is not talking to anybody. So kind of tells you he's doing some thinking there. So we'll see how this thing goes.
One thing I do like about, this whole situation is that it's just one guy. It's just kind of one following one, digging into one. If this was 5 or 6, this would be nuts. If this was, trying to hold on to a bunch of guys, this would be crazy. I love the numbers here. I absolutely love the numbers. And that brings us to another point, Rusty. 2025. Man, listen, Juju Lewis, it doesn't just stop with him. It's Juju Lewis, it's Elijah Griffin, it's Zayden Walker, it's all of these 5-star prospects in this 2025 class. We'll start with Juju, who was on campus this past weekend. We previewed the visit. I wrote late in the middle of last week, Georgia is going to be a major player here. I also wrote, I feel like there's some, and I hate saying stuff like this because I don't want USC folks to get the impression that, man, Lincoln Riley's tough to turn down at quarterback, man. I mean, it's just what he's done with quarterbacks is unreal. But, I've heard a little buzz that's like, all right, well, he might not end up at USC, or there may be a good chance he doesn't end up at USC. And if he doesn't, I think Georgia is a massive major player here. Doesn't sound like they hurt their chances this past weekend.
No, I mean, I don't think there's anything. If I'm a USC fan, I'm worried. I mean, my quarterback, my face of this class, now, because he's 2025, is taking multiple visits to other places, and you better be worried if Georgia had him committed and he's at Alabama, he's at USC and Oklahoma, I'd be saying the same thing. You know what I mean? Like, what's going on here? And he's certainly doing his due diligence, and Georgia is a major player in this. There's no doubt in my mind. Staying close to home is going to be something important to him, and kind of the success that Georgia's had. You started with Todd Monken and offensively what they did, and then you come in and look at Georgia. I think most passing yards in the SEC, I think, this past year. All the stuff they did offensively, they're spreading it around all over the place with Bobo. And, I think that was a good weekend for he and his family. I'm not going to answer for them, kind of where they are, but I'm confident in that Georgia is a serious player in this deal. And he's not, listen, I had a couple of people tell me, man, it's Juju or bust. It's not Juju or bust at quarterback. That's not how this thing is going. Is he a major target? Absolutely is a major target. But you saw Mike Bobo put out other offers. You saw him go visit other 2025 quarterbacks. This is something they're doing their due diligence on as well. But he is a major target for Georgia in this class.
Yeah, Georgia's all over, a couple different quarterbacks. I mean, Georgia is absolutely covering its bases at quarterback. Rusty, I wanted to ask you about this whole idea that you got an elite quarterback. He reclassified. He should be a 2026 guy. He's a 2025 guy. But the one thing that sometimes can help you in recruiting these guys is the fact that you're going to have an open job in 2025. And a lot of those guys, a lot of those elite football players, they never think they're out of it. One of the reasons they are who they are is they think they've got a chance to win every single job. Listen, it may sound delusional. You take some of these cats, they think they could go try to compete and get an NFL job right now. They're wired different. So how much does that help Georgia that spot does kind of fling wide open in 2025?
No question. That has to be something they'll look at. They'll be at spring practice and there's a couple guys ahead of them, and Gunnar Stockton and Ryan Puglisi, if they go to Georgia, and they would still be on campus and those type of things. So those guys that are these, the 5-star quarterbacks I have dealt with for a long time. The idea is I'm going to play, if not start, I'm going to play as a freshman, because they're not wired to sit. They've never really had to sit. You know what I mean? And it takes a while, but I think that's the appeal as well. I think talking to people around this location too is a big deal for the family, and it's starting to turn some things in Georgia's favor about you don't have to get on a plane every single time. I don't know if you saw it, man, but
I did.
Poor guy got his truck stolen. He went to Indiana Sunday, and there was a former staffer at Alabama that's up there now. That's a connection to Indiana. I don't really think Indiana's in a position to flip him right now, but Juju guy's truck stolen from Atlanta Airport, man. I felt that. I mean, have my truck stolen in downtown Atlanta, have a valet parking lot overnight one time, and it's a bad deal when you wake up and realize that. But hate it for the young man. Hope he gets his stuff back, and hopefully they find his truck.
Hopefully it doesn't work out like the movies and it turns up in a bank robbery somewhere. That's when every time somebody's setting up for a bank robbery, they say go steal one from the airport at a long-term parking. I'm
telling you right now, I could do a bark after dark on what happened with my truck. They basically stole my truck, and they went to them. This was 10 years ago. Stole my truck out of downtown, a hotel in downtown Atlanta at 2:00 in the morning. Drove straight to the airport and stole a bunch of luggage at the airport and filled that truck up. And they found that truck on like 75 South, like 5 days later in an abandoned parking lot, but it was full of stolen stuff. It was a disaster to try to recover all that kind of stuff.
Sounds like it. And that stealing luggage things is always a tale as old as time. People have been doing that for a long, long time. All right, let's real quick before we wrap up. We don't have the longest show this morning because it's the off season and it's tough to find stuff to really dig in. But before we get to kind of our look ahead at Alabama, more Peach State 5-star prospects, Rusty, Zayden Walker, Elijah Griffin. Georgia seems to be in pretty good shape there for those two. What would you say right now?
Yeah, so far I do believe for those two in premium positions. I can't say it enough. This 2025 class is really deep in Georgia, and it's deep for the right positions and at the right time for Georgia. Because I'll say this: in the years that Kirby Smart has been the head coach of Georgia, I've never seen him spend this much time in state during that January evaluation period. He hit every corner. He was going to schools that didn't have, I would say, Georgia recruits. I was at Lowndes on Sunday, and Saturday I was at Lowndes for a camp in South Georgia. And he had landed at Lowndes on Friday, and I asked the coach, I said, y'all got a Georgia kid right here? He goes, no. He said he just came by, and that meant a lot to them. And there's a lot of schools that Kirby Smart just went by. And he knows the right areas because those schools produce. Sooner or later, they're going to produce one. And there was some. I mean, Lowndes has some really good players, but there's not a kid with a Georgia offer right now. So you look at those types of things. He was in Northwest Georgia. He was on the coast. He was in Thomasville, Bainbridge. He was in Middle Georgia. I mean, we saw it for the whole month. I've never seen him spend this much time in the state of Georgia. I guarantee you. That was strategic. And you start thinking about NIL and kids in the portal, those in-state kids that grew up Bulldog fans, and that means a little more now.
Yeah, absolutely. And listen, it may not, it may not help. It's a case-by-case basis. You never know when a kid's going to move on, but it's something you try. It's something a button you've got to try and push. And another thing I'll say too is there's this narrative out there that, man, Georgia's just gone national in terms of how they've recruited. It's not necessarily they have, but it's been a little bit out of necessity. These last couple classes haven't been as loaded into Peach State. You've got some guys kind of moving in, moving out. Sometimes a guy, right down the road, and he just really doesn't have any ties to Georgia. That's just how it goes. And that's the way it's always been in this state. But ultimately, when you have a class like this one that's shaping up like this, when you got so many South Georgia kids, so many kids like Elijah Griffin who have been here their whole lives, and even Juju Lewis, you got to take a crack at it. You got to place an emphasis on it. And sometimes they get beat out for in-state kids. It's not the fact they just don't recruit them hard. Sometimes you lose out on a kid. Yep. That's just the way it goes. Rusty, let's look ahead to this Georgia-Alabama game. We've been kind of taking a quick peek at these, schools. We've looked at Georgia-Clemson, talked about the fact that Georgia will be up to start the season. That adds an element to the offseason that was missing this past year. Talked about Georgia, Kentucky, a couple new faces, Jamon Dumas-Johnson, Brock Vandegrift. Kentucky's looking for a new offensive coordinator now, after Liam Cohen leaves for Tampa Bay. Tough break there for Brock Vandegrift, and interested to see who they bring in. But Georgia, Alabama, sometimes the stories write themselves. This is one of them. In Tuscaloosa, what do you think?
I don't think we have to say much. Like, if this is like, I think this is DeBoer's first SEC game. Kirby Smart goes back to Tuscaloosa. The SEC championship loss last year, derailed them from a chance to three-peat, and so many storylines around this one. Jalen Milroe, they've played him once now. How will they play him different? What will this Washington majority staff bring to the table? What are they going to do different? And I believe they play at Wisconsin. Did they play in Green Bay? Second game.
I don't know where they play, but I do know they play at Wisconsin. I can
play
look
at
real quick.
So you're gonna see they're not going to be able to. They're going to show some things there. They would have to, in my opinion. Georgia opens up with Clemson, so they're not going to hold things in the bag for a game like that. But when you look at this Georgia Alabama, there's just endless storylines going to Tuscaloosa, and this will be a game that. They will be, the entire country will be watching this one for sure. I would be shocked if game day and whatever's out there now, can they get there to that game? It's going to be all eyes on Tuscaloosa for that Georgia Alabama game.
Man, for the first time since that 2017 national championship game, the first time they met with Kirby Smart as a head coach, and it wasn't like looking into a mirror there either. Alabama was definitely put together differently that on that day, but for the first time in a very long time, it was going to be like, at least schematically, and the way they go about playing football, it's not going to be like looking in a mirror. I mean, they're going to have to look at a brand new defense and a brand new offense. I'm not saying that puts them at a disadvantage, but you're looking at something completely new. I mean, some of the same personnel, but you're not going to be able to run your defense in practice anymore. And kind of be there, and again, it hadn't helped Georgia in the past, so I'm not saying it's going to hurt Georgia now, but it's just weird that game takes on a completely new look now.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's going to be, they're all, you start talking about Kevin Steele and all these guys, and even when Jeremy Pruitt was a defensive coordinator there against these offensive staffs, you kind of knew what they were thinking. Entirely different cast of characters, coaches. There now for the majority. So, like you said, there's going to be a lot of different variables in this game. But at the end of the day, this is a huge game for Kirby Smart, and this is a huge game for Kalen DeBoer. Like, this is both of these guys. This kind of sets a tone, and really for him, for DeBoer, like, this is the one. Like, if you can beat Georgia, you're off to a tremendous start at home. You can imagine Tuscaloosa will be rocking that week.
Yeah, and Alabama does play Wisconsin at Camp Randall in Madison on September 14th.
A little jump around.
Yeah, a little jump around there, and they'll have that going on. And Georgia's off the prior week. I believe Alabama's off the prior week. It's gonna be a fun matchup, man. I'm excited to get to it. One thing I do know though, Rusty, I will not be staying in Tuscaloosa. The DawgsHQ travel budget will not allow for that. I believe the hotel room's like $2,000 a night. So definitely not going to go Daddy Warbucks on that one. We'll probably stay in Hoover.
I got y'all a room at the Buc-ee's parking lot right there in Leeds, Alabama, as you come in to Birmingham. I got y'all all you can eat brisket breakfast the next morning. So you can take a shower at Buc-ee's. You're good.
I was thinking about showing up at Tim Watts' house with a shower cap on and just a wagon full of stuff.
He'd let you. You.
Oh, I know he would. I'm just I just want to show up there looking as absurd as I possibly can look.
Is that already announced, a night game?
Yes, it is. 7:30 p.m. Eastern, I believe.
Ooh, it's gonna be
I could be wrong on that though. It's either 7:30 p.m. Eastern or Central. So I believe it's 7:30 p.m. Eastern though, if I'm not mistaken. So be on ABC. Time's already announced. A lot of fun, man. A lot of fun. And as always, I've got a Friday night wedding that I've got to try to figure out whether I'm going to go to or not. The problem is that Friday night wedding is in Estes Park, Colorado. So
One of that. I'm not
it's
going
gonna be a little wild. Gonna have to figure that one out. May have to fly into Birmingham early that morning. Take the red eye, or take the first flight out of Denver that morning. I got some family getting married, but anyway, Georgia, Alabama, man, I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking so forward to it. And by the way, Archibald's barbecue is overrated. I still think Dreamland's better than Archibald's. Archibald's not very good.
I like Dreamland. Yep.
All right, folks. We'll be back with you on Thursday. Me and Palmer will be here with you at 8:30 a.m. sharp. So be here, be ready, have some questions. We're going to do a mailbag and some other stuff. But for this episode of the Georgia Show, I'm Jake. He's Rusty. Y'all have a great day.